Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, issue 4. Tom King writing, Bill Chris Evely on the art. And this was, the last couple issues were very much like slices of one particular part of the trip. This was, I'll call it the montage issue.
Yeah.
Which is to say that it kind of like every few pages we skip ahead to a new world. So it really gives you this sense of the trek, the journey that they're going on, looking for the murderer of the girl's father. And it kind of goes through just this sort of variety of scenarios that Supergirl's in and how she reacts to certain types of violence, because it's all violent. It's all is it Clem's the bad guy?
Yeah.
He's with a group who are straight up like blowing places up, murdering people, pillaging.
Yeah, the brigands.
The brigands are going from world to world doing this, and they keep getting there at the aftermath of each time, and it's kind of like sad and depressing. Pretty much through. It's a very dour issue in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and to me, what I like here is that it's showing how Kara is different than Clark with certain things. Like, this is doing a real good job of showing you her almost like, I don't want to say it's Survivor's Guild exactly, right? Because she remembers Krypton, right?
Mm.
And so here it gets to a part, and I don't want to skip over too much, but it's where the main character, not the main character, but the girl that's with her, I forget her name, but she talks about how Kara deals with these things, and it's not with heat vision or frost breath, or as she keeps her eyes clear so she can see you, and she doesn't freeze things with her breath so she can talk to you, and she holds your hand, to let you know that you're not alone.
Yeah, she slows down to walk. She could speed around, but she slows down to walk by your side. Yeah, that was one of the lines.
And I was like, God damn, Tom King.
He knows how to spin a yarn.
He does. And there's that scene in particular that stood out, and then the burial scene.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that just so Superman, right?
We start with this alien baby that Kara picks up in this aftermath, and they go ahead and we see her feeding this alien who's in hospital who witnessed like his best friend be killed by the brigands. And there's so many little things that I think it does really smart here in this conversation, which is maybe like 4 pages or whatever it is. But this alien, like, in 4 pages, King is able to give him a distinct voice, where the way he phrases things, where the way he talks about his friend, the way he repeats certain lines or phrases, it just like by page 2 or 3, I already like felt like, oh, he's talking like I expect this character to talk now.
Yeah.
And it's insane to get that in that few pages, but he does it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of dialogue that helps.
I mean, true, yeah, there's a lot of dialogue and these
This is the page I got to where I got irritated with work because I'm trying to read and I keep getting stopped. And I was like, you don't understand reading a Tom King book right now? All right? You need to focus.
There are words.
Yeah, but it's building this good sense of character, so you care about this guy who's only on like 3 or 4 pages, but it's also building this menace of just how bad this asshole is and how much he deserves to be killed, which is almost like challenging the reader to maybe side with the girl rather than Kara, that maybe this guy should just like have his neck snapped because he's awful.
Right, so like, I still believe that Krem is more of a symbolic figure than an actual figure. That by the end of this, Krem is more than just one person. You know what I mean? Like, Krem is representative of this girl's vengeance and whatnot, just because of the way that he's a through line to all these horrific acts. And that's based on the story that they're following him because, Kara needs to get the antidote to save Crypto. But I just keep feeling the idea that he's more of an idea than a man.
I don't know. We saw the actual man in the first issue, right? And then he joined up with the brigands. So it's less that it's one person doing all these horrific acts. It's this group are doing all these horrific acts that they they happen to be following one person in that group.
No, I know, but I just think by the end of this, it's more about the idea of Krem than actual himself. If that makes sense.
I kind of get what Matt's saying, in the sense that, like, if the girl does get to him and kills him, like, because she's been so obsessed with the idea of the vengeance that it's almost less about him himself and who he is,
right.
Sure,
kind of thing. But the next section we get is the alien who's digging graves, and he's basically digging hundreds of graves on his own because if he doesn't, then the government on this planet are just going to put all the bodies into a mass grave, and his own was it wife or daughter were amongst the dead, so he wants to do all these graves. And when Supergirl offers help and says, "Can I help you?" he sort of says, "No, it's my duty. I really shouldn't." But then she kind of makes it clear, no, like, you know,
you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah, like
let me help you.
You know, let me help. And he's like, well, I suppose it's more likely to be finished in time if I do have help. So yes, I will accept your thing. And then of course she uses her super speed. She speeds around and just does it all like super quick. And he's kind of like in awe. And it's a very sweet gesture, but it's obviously this really sad, dark thing because it's digging lots of graves.
Right, and he's almost doing it like it was his penance, right? Like I have to do this because I couldn't stop them. And Kara's like, "Oh no, you don't have to do this by yourself. Let me help you." And then she locates, the daughter's remains.
Just looks at his DNA and checks the DNA of all the rest. Like, yeah, that one matches. Enough.
Yeah. I'm not really critiquing this book for this. I have to say, I don't like the idea that the supervision that Clark and Kara have can see DNA. Like, I don't like it being that, microscopic.
I don't either. And that could have been a nitpick, and that's, because Supergirl things. However, I took it as this is the character who's telling the story's memory of this going on, and that as it's being told, in her brain, that's what Kara did,
I get where you come from, but also I feel like it's not, as much as I don't think we really like it, it's not actually that much of a stretch beyond what they do anyway. That I'm like, yeah, that probably is just what happened.
It's not, or alternatively, Kara knows what this man wants to hear, right? And says, "Hey, I scanned your DNA. I found your daughter," and she's telling it so he can get closure,
But it's really just some random girl that he's taking.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but to him, it's not any less real, right? Like she is helping him through this, and I just that's what this is her helping montage, and I really did it. I really dug it. Like it's almost like the labors of Kara's world.
That was not intentional, but that was such a pun.
It was not intentional.
That was such a pun.
It wasn't intentional.
He dug it.
I dug it
like a grave.
But no, that was a really, like you talked about the Nightwing stuff making you emotional. That one for whatever reason hit with her helping, and
I mean
it's interesting for me because this is easily my least favorite issue of this book. That I get everything that you're coming from, like the idea of this being the montage and kind of giving that sense of, no, this is a big journey, and all these have the through line with the massacres and the violence and the horrors. But I don't think for me any of the stories were enough. There wasn't enough time on any of them to really connect in enough time, enough space for all of them, so that I felt like, okay, I get what it's going for, but I didn't actually get the feelings of any of them.
I mean, I could say as I was feeling. I mean, the next one is this big alien who's like 15 foot tall or whatever it works out to be, but Kara's like, no, hit me, because it's like, you have to get your rage out, hit me. And she's like, no, I am big and you are small, it will hurt. And it's like, no, I'll be fine, trust me. And this is an alien from a warrior race, right? Yeah. Like, do you know what I like about this though is there's almost like a hint of comedy in this one, where like she really has to be talked into it, but eventually she does a big huge like sort of ground slam onto Supergirl. And she's sort of like, that I thought you, and then it becomes pow pow pow, and there's like a whole page of her just smashing at her. And then it's like, but then it's like sad at the end though, because then the big alien's crying and Kara kind of hugs her as best she can when she's that much smaller than her.
Thing that I did like about this too is that it talked about this alien was off at war against the Picts.
Yeah, I noticed that little
which ties it to Strange Adventures just a little bit, which I really like. So I thought that was nice, and that's why this big warrior alien couldn't be there to defend her home and her family.
I don't even necessarily think it's saying they're definitely in the same continuity. I think it's just like a wink.
No.
But it's little nudge nudge.
It's the Tom King verse, right? Where it's like, I'm gonna throw this alien race in here that up until Strange Adventures I wasn't familiar with. So but I do like that it's just a throwaway. Was that Connor?
Yeah, no one was really familiar with them, I don't think, until that book.
Well, I don't even know off the top of my head if they're a DC Comics thing or if that's something that King, created whole cloth for Strange Adventures. But so that just that name being there, I got a small smile out of. And
so then the characters debate whether or not they should kill Rem. Obviously the girl wants to. Kara's saying no one should. And they're on a very sort of somber looking planet here with it's just all like carved, like the people here carved their stories into their exteriors of their buildings, so it's all very detailed. And
yeah, because the life on those planets are so rough, they want the stories to be seen by everybody, which again is another touch that I like here on the storytelling level, because this is a story being told about Kara, so I just like that a little bit.
Yeah, and Supergirl goes in to sort of see the story, as it were, and when she comes out, she's kind of like, she's shell shocked and says, I saw all of it. And we see then the next scene on a planet is that they've actually caught someone who was a part of the Brigands or worked with the Brigands, and the crowd is stoning them to death. And we see Supergirl in the crowd, and the girl says, I know he deserved that, but I thought you'd have saved him. And Supergirl just says, did you? And it's kind of like this thing where obviously Supergirl's against killing, but she wasn't going to intervene with this.
No, this is their justice.
Yeah, this is their rules. This is their law that they've put through. So so it keeps, and then the next one is like this like mystical fantasy castle in the sky that they're going through, and it's just like bloods everywhere. It's getting like darker and darker, and this is the one where Supergirl basically just flies off so she can go to the sun and scream and feel the pain and like it's just.
Well, so what makes her do this is that this was a planet of monks, and they did not fight the Brigands, and the Brigands just did whatever, and
they sat there and chanted or prayed, and the Brigands just still murdered them anyway. It was like just this horrific sight.
Right, and it was violence for the sake of violence, and that's where you almost feel like where Kara's reached her breaking point. So she flies up into the sun because that's the one place where she can let all of this out, and herself not have repercussions. Right?
And the point, pardon me, the point as well is that Kara will never admit that she feels this, that it's getting to her. She'll put on the brave face for those around her. And this weight that she carries, because she came from a world that died, and she's going from world to world, and it's not the entire worlds that are dead, but she's seeing just like communities or families or entire towns that have been just decimated by this awful force that's going and doing this. When the scene of the Gravedigger earlier, this guy, like, he's not the last of his kind, but he is the survivor who lost a loved one, and he's burying. I mean, yeah, he lost his daughter, but he probably knew a lot of the people, the other people that he's burying too. Like, he's lost his entire world in a sense. But Kara says to her that she's going home. Like, that now that she knows that they're closing in Krem, that the girl has to go home. She can't be there for this, and then she doesn't like that. Obviously, she's she's saying no. But yeah.
So I like here what her ultimate thing is she's like, well, no, this is my decision. This is my fight. And you're on this ride with me. Like, I know you're looking for the antidote to save your dog, but this is my mission too. And then she tells a story about back home on the rock farm, which is still a hilarious, sentence to say, as a rock farm, that, they basically have mules, and that you can really break a mule by making it go on its journey or make it do its work on its own. Or from the time you get that mule or donkey, you have it carry the burden with another one, and then you get more work out of it. So it's almost like, no, let me share this burden with you. And so Kara's taking all of this in for all these other people, so other people don't have to have it. yet, this girl realizes like, this is my burden as well. Let's share it together. And I think that's a really, like a nice way to end this part of the story on, because now we're halfway done.
Yeah, and it kind of ends in this beat as well, where her convincing her, because it ends with her getting on Kara's back and flying off. She's kind of convinced her to let her stay, but the way she kind of does that is that Kara says, "No, you can't be here. You're too young for this." And she says, "Well, what age were you when you first saw Terror?" And she says, "I was a girl." And she's like, "Well, what am I?" Like, so it's kind of this acceptance that, like, not that Kara's a parent here, but it's kind of that same thing of like parents never wanting their kids to go through the horror they went through at a certain age. They want them to be innocent longer, to be shielded and protected longer. And this is but in this case, it's not just like something's kind of bad that we all have to go through in our adolescence happen. This is your family was murdered, or in Kara's case, your entire planet was destroyed. These are extremes in this context. And it's just that idea of like her accepting that this girl's already went through the murder of her father. She's already kind of different to other people her age. She's already kind of, in the same way that a Bruce is already traumatized after his parents. So there's no making him a normal kid after that. I mean, maybe you can put him on a different path and make him not be Batman, but there's no making him a normal kid after that. So it's like, okay, you're already different and we're already on this journey. And it's also, like you said, Supergirl allowing someone else to share the burden a little bit. And I think that's something that, if that's one of the mission statements of this book, is Supergirl sort of learning that she has to not be a solo character, that she can have a support system. It's the sort of thing,
she doesn't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing, and you get why she does, because she is the only one who remembers Krypton. Clark, as much as he's another Kryptonian, doesn't remember it. And I don't think it will, but you could totally see how this would spin off into an ongoing, not by King I'm saying, but like you could sort of see how we would get an ongoing Supergirl book after this, where it's her coming back to Earth being like, you know what, no, I don't have to be alone, I can be with others. And that's where you sort of pick up, and you can the run can do whatever it wants. The only thing it has to do is have interactions with people and get close to people, and that's it. Anything you do with that,
and again, and it makes her different from Clark in that way too. That how she handles it isn't the same way he would. Clark and I do like that.
Clark would have stopped the stoning.
Yeah,
like he would have.
But that's Clark. That's the way he experienced the world is different from the way that Kara has experienced the world. So, and just reading this type of stuff when it gets to like these type of stories of the different cultures and stuff, I wonder how much of Tom King's experience as a CIA analyst has informed a lot of these, especially this one in Strange Adventures. Yeah,
I think this. I think they all have to some extent, because they're dealing with like PTSD, or Strange Adventures. It's like what you do to win, and I think with this one, like the idea of like Supergirl coming across all these like massacres and stuff. I'm not saying Tom King was necessarily going into like the aftermath of like horrible things, but he certainly was hearing about them.
Aware of them.
He was certainly talking about them, and like maybe whatever his specific job was, I don't know, but he was certainly in the know of them. So that was something that he would have been dealing with from time to time, if not frequently, depending on so.
Just the art on top of it with Evely, I can never say enough good things. This one though gets to showcase a bunch of different things, because each planet is different, and each one looks just as stunning as the last. And then just that scene where Kara flies into the sun, and just the rage and sadness on her face, it's like perfect. Like,
is Evely did the colors on this as well?
I believe so, because it just credits her as art, right?
No, Matthias Lopez.
Okay.
Does the colors? I just want to give a shout out, because like especially early on in this issue, where it goes from like the planet with all the graves, just all this like muted soft colors, and then the next one is the warrior alien, where it's like Kirby-esque.
Right.
And you've got like again up to this like the gothic fantasy kind of one with the with the way that is, and extremely detailed artwork on like the ornate architecture as well. But
that's
the way the color palettes shift every time.
Because that goes to a lot of whites. Like it's very
whites is the monks.
Yeah. That's what I meant. We used to talk about the fantasy one.
The dark gothic one where
okay.
it's you know, where she stays outside.
The one that would almost be Giger looking if it was just.
That's I was just gonna say Giger-esque.
Yeah, a little bit. If it was a little bit more erotic, it'd just be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. Gothic fantasy.
Just alien dongs everywhere.
Do you know what I appreciate about this book and kind of the list of work that King's kind of been putting together with all these 12-issue minis and in this case 8 issues that even if this one didn't hit me in quite the same way immediately as some of the other ones did, is I'm kind of appreciating the variety and his like sort of trying of different, because this is a very different style and it's something where he wants that like constant narrator, this like past tense kind of like the legend of that time I spent with this amazing person who's this miracle kind of vibe.
So Connor said that this was his least favorite, and I think this one's my favorite just because, like, not that he's worn me down, but, you know, go back to the first issue we talked about. I wasn't in. And now with knowing King's point of view on Kara and knowing what that is, I'm way in.
I understand why.
I'm not saying
I can see all the technical parts for this issue in particular. Like I can see all the technical parts of why this works, why this is effective. It's just as I was reading it, I kind of felt myself checking out. Like there wasn't enough of a consistent thread in this issue, and the individual, you know, short stories essentially is what they are, weren't quite enough for me. I think for me this book has worked better in the longer, you know, here's the story of this issue.
I imagine you'll probably get that again next time.
Yeah. I do think though, like, you know, when it comes down to it, you say, you know, there's a lot of what King's experienced in this book, like we're sure, and, you know, we'll talk about that in his other books. I think I find King harder to relate to than some other writers. So, you know, whatever it is about King's, you know, his life experiences that he puts into his writing doesn't necessarily translate to me as well as some other writers, I think, which is why sometimes I bounce off his books, even though, you know, sometimes they're really good and sometimes I can stick with them and they're great, but other times I just kind of bounce off them because things don't work for me. And I think it's down to just what he brings to it, not in a craft point of view, not in a technical level, but just his experiences that he puts into don't kind of translate to me, perhaps as well as some other writers.
Oh, well, fair enough.
I'm not going to argue with that. I just wanted to show like how this was your least favorite, but with, you know.
Well, that's it. Like I can see the technical elements of this as to why this should be so effective and why, you know, for people this would be their favorite issue. And I'm kind of just annoyed. I'm annoyed that it's not for me. I'm annoyed that I kind of didn't enjoy it as much as I want to.
You're fundamentally broken because you have no soul because of your hair color. So it's just...
that explains a lot, actually.
Yeah, like that's just it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like Kara will still walk with you. All right. Oh man, this also could be a religion parable. Now that I just said that, and I didn't even think about that.
Oh, am I going to get carried? Is she just the single pair of footsteps in the sand?
Matt's brain's imploding as he's realizing more possible ways to read this story. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So Matt, what are you giving the Supergirl
issue? This is 9.5.
Whoa! Look at that, Car.
I feel like I just recreating the meme of the guy blinking, just being like the what? I feel like I just did that. No, it's like a 6 for me. No, I understand what it's doing. Art is gorgeous, but I just couldn't connect with it.
Yeah, I think I'll go with a 9, straight 9 for me on this. That was excellent.